Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios. Today I'm here to do another Thinking Out Loud video, and I'm going to be talking about how to get good. If anyone's played Hollow Knight, there's a scene towards the end of the game where Hornet comes in just as you're battling the Hollow Knight, no, spoilers and all that, and if you do the true ending, she throws her needle at the Hollow Knight and paralyzes him for a moment. You're supposed to use something called a Dream Nail to get into the final boss Radiance. Anyways, I say all that to say is there's kind of a meme in the Hollow Knight community where they talk about how when she throws her needle, she says something that sounds like "get good," and that always just kind of amused me, and it's been kind of a meme when it comes to harder games. You know, in order to beat games that are hard, you need to get good at the games. And there's some truth to that. And what I'm here to talk about is kind of along those same lines. I want to get into the topic of being able to get good at the things you want to get good at. And if you've watched my video from the previous week, I talked about how to build good habits, and this is kind of where those come into play. Because in order to get good at something, the big secret is you have to be willing to be bad at it first. I'm going to share just a couple of stories about how I've gone through kind of that process in my own life, just to kind of give some illustrations and maybe spark some ideas on your own end and maybe inspire you a little bit. But the first story I'm going to talk about is when I was very young. Me and a bunch of the neighborhood kids got together and we'd play baseball, football, soccer, basketball, all sorts, you know, all the games that young boys tend to play, all the sports that we were into. But one of the sports that I really fell in love with at a young age, maybe 9, 10, 11-ish, was roller hockey. And at first I had to borrow a neighborhood kid's stick, and I would switched between left-handed and right-handed until I got corrected on that, and ultimately ended up being left-handed even though I'm a right-handed person. Neither here nor there. Anyways, I would start off by running and, you know, hitting it was a tennis ball into, you know, our neighbor's garage and score a goal that way. And eventually I invested in a pair of rollerblades, and I got pretty good at rollerblading. And after a year or two of playing roller hockey during the summer months, my friend's dad decided, well, I don't know if decided is the right word, but he mentioned to me that maybe I should get into real ice hockey. And I thought, that sounds pretty cool. And so he gave me some advice, and, you know, we looked into some teams that maybe I could join because there was none around our local area, our local city. No ice rinks were within, the closest ice rink was like a half hour away. And I ended up playing for a team that was like an hour away. And so, but I didn't know how to ice skate at the time. I had been on the ice maybe 2 or 3 times and didn't really know much about it. And I will say that rollerblading and ice skating do not translate well with each other. Just because you're good at rollerblading does not mean you're going to be also good at ice skating. They're different mechanics. There is some overlap, but by and large, very different mechanics. And so, in order to play ice hockey, I first had to learn how to ice skate. And so I would bug my parents to take me to all the open skates they could get me to. And, you know, it was about a half-hour drive to the nearest one, like I said, and they had open skates maybe 1 or 2 times a week. And I'd go up there, I'd run a pair of ice skates, and I'd skate around. And one of the biggest things that I had to really learn how to do was to stop. I know that sounds kind of like a duh, but stopping on ice is maybe not as easy as you might first think it is. You have to put your feet in a very precise placement and turn your body. So if you're going this way, you need to move your skates this way to stop that momentum. And you have to do it while kind of letting it drag along the ice in a very uncomfortable way. And needless to say, I fell and fell and fell and fell and fell, and I hurt myself, and I fell, and I kept at it. and I was bad. I was so bad at it. The first few months of me skating and trying to learn how to stop was mostly just me catching the ice, falling to my face, and sliding down, embarrassing myself in front of dozens and dozens of can't talk, dozens and dozens of onlookers. But I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I would beg my parents to take me to all the open skates they, had the time to take me to. And over a 3, 4, 5 month period, I finally got to the point where I learned how to stop. And I also was able to master stuff, things like skating backwards and other things. And eventually I joined a hockey team, and I did pretty well in my youth. And I loved this sport, and it was just a lot of fun. If you're into hockey, more power to you. I wish it was more popular than it is, but, c'est la vie. Anyways, that's the first story. I was really bad, but I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I, going back to that previous video, like I said, I formed the habit of going, and I was willing to be bad until I could finally figure out how to get good. The second thing we'll talk about is guitar. Now, I've mentioned this one also in a previous video, so I won't spend too much time, but when I first learned how to play guitar, it was uncomfortable, it was painful, and completely foreign to me. You have to put your fingers in some very awkward positions. Just so I happen to have an example here. But I can play the guitar really easily today. It's like no thing. Super easy now, but I had to be willing to be very bad at it before I could get good. And putting your fingers in these positions is not easy when you're first starting. It's painful. These strings, they dig into your skin. That's why you develop calluses on your fingers after you play for a while, which allows you to play the guitar without your fingers hurting. But until you develop those calluses, it is painful. You are putting your fingers in very awkward positions, very foreign positions, before it becomes kind of natural over time. But when I was first starting out, in order to switch between chords, or even to play a chord, I would have to actually take my fingers and put them on the strings like that and hold them there, and then I would strum, and then to change to the next chord, I would then have to move my fingers to where they were supposed to be. And it sounded probably more like that when I was first playing, because I wasn't putting the right pressure on it. Don't even get me into bar chords. Like, that was so hard to learn. Being able to push down all the strings and then still have your fingers mobile over here to fill in the chord. It was extremely tough. For the first 6 months of my playing guitar almost daily, because I was building the habit of playing guitar, it would be this process, and it was rough and it was embarrassing. I think I mentioned, but one of my best friends at the time actually had come over to me at one point and said, "Wow, you suck. You probably should just give up." And I almost did. I'm glad I didn't, but I almost gave up because of that, because of my friend telling me a painful truth at the time. But instead of giving up, it kind of motivated me to dig in even harder to kind of show him that, I can do this. And so, because I developed the habit of doing that daily, after a while, it got to the point where I could kind of play guitar. Kind of, right? Now, like I said, it's become very easy for me now today because, well, I've put the time, I've put the effort in, but I had to be willing to be bad at guitar before I could get good. And it took time and it took effort. And ultimately it was worth it. I love playing guitar. It's been a great pastime for me. It's allowed me to be in bands and write music and all sorts of stuff. It's opened up a lot of doors. So I'm very thankful that I stuck with it. There was one other story I wanted to share. What was it? Oh, engineering, mixing. When I first started becoming an engineer, I was kind of thrown into the fire, so to speak, or thrown into the water to learn how to swim. I didn't know how to operate a mixing board. I didn't know what gain structure was. I didn't know signal flow. I didn't know anything. I didn't understand how the DAW worked, the digital audio workstation. I knew absolutely nothing. And I was expected at the time to be able to record bands that came in or close my doors. And so I had to learn quickly how to get that stuff working. Now I finally was able to figure out how to get the recording, I was able to learn how to record stuff. But my mic placement was terrible. I didn't know anything, and I was bad at it. I was really bad, over my head. It was embarrassing again, and I had to be willing to go through that embarrassment, be willing to be bad at the recording process, the mixing process. There was nothing I was good at to begin with. Everything that I've learned, I've had to learn through painful trial and error, and just doing it over and over and over again until I could finally get good enough to be able to create quality recordings. And today, my bass recordings are 1,000 times better sounding than my final mixes were 15 years ago, 20 years ago when I first started, getting into this, because I learned over the process of trial and error and being bad about how to get good. What mic positions work best, how to place things in a proper way, how to get the right gain structure, how to operate compressors and EQs, how to balance things in a way that sounds pleasing, how to choose the right instruments and the right sounds, getting the sounds to sound good up front. All of these things were things that I had to learn through painful trial and error, and I had to be willing to be bad at it in order to get good, because it takes time and effort. I think there was a book called I wish I could remember, but it was a Malcolm Gladwell book. I cannot remember the name of, but every book that he's written I've loved. But he talks about the fact that it takes about 10,000 hours to get mastery in anything, whether that's chess, learning an instrument, learning a language, anything, driving a car. It takes about 10,000 hours of purposeful effort and trying to improve and get better at that thing. Meaning, if I were to just play the same chord on guitar over and over and over and again and never stretch myself to learn other things, well, I'm not really improving. I'm just playing one chord over and over and over. That's not making me better at guitar. That's just repeating past experiences. In order to get better at guitar, I had to stretch myself and do things that were uncomfortable. I had to learn new things and apply them in new ways. And that's ultimately what led me to be able to play the guitar to the degree at which I can play today. I'm not trying to claim to be an expert, but I think it's fair to say that I know a few things. Now, I say all this to say that in your own journey, forming these habits of doing things daily, of putting in the effort and being willing to be bad, is what will allow you to get good, as Hornet says. And just for the record, I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit of bragging, but I was able to do all full completion on Hollow Knight because I put the effort in to get good at that game. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a noble thing to strive for, but it was something that I wanted to do, and I did it. And so, for whatever it's worth, I did put the effort into Hollow Knight to get good, and I was able to do all the achievements in it. Anyways, I hope all this has been helpful. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I wish you the best of luck in forming your good habits and getting good at the things that you want to get good at in life. Talk to you later. Bye.